never thought our 10th wedding anniversary dinner would end with a pregnancy announcement, especially not from my husband's 24-year-old mistress. But there we were, sitting in one of the fanciest restaurants in town, when Jessica walked up to our table in a tight red dress. "Surprise?" she said cheerfully, pulling out a chair without asking. "I hope you don't mind me joining your special night, but I have amazing news. My name is Olivia. I'm 38 years old, and for the past year, I've watched my marriage with Marcus fall apart. He worked late, got secretive with his phone, and suddenly became obsessed with going to the gym. I knew about Jessica, his young assistant, long before he started making it obvious. But I stayed quiet for my own reasons. You see, Marcus had a secret, one that even Jessica didn't know about. And tonight, she was about to get a shock." "Jessica, what are you doing here?" Marcus asked, looking nervous. The expensive bottle of wine we were sharing suddenly didn't seem strong enough for the situation. "I'm pregnant," Jessica announced, placing a hand on her stomach. "We're having a baby, Marcus. Isn't that wonderful?" I took a slow sip of my wine, enjoying the moment. Marcus looked pale, his eyes darting toward me as if he was begging for something. Understanding, forgiveness, or maybe just a way out. "Congratulations," I said calmly, reaching for my purse. I pulled out a plain white envelope. "Since we're sharing news, I have something too." "Olivia," Marcus warned, but I ignored him. "Go ahead," I said, sliding the envelope across the table. "You both should read this. Consider it my anniversary gift." Jessica grabbed it eagerly and tore it open. But as she read, her smile faded. I don't understand," she mumbled, looking between Marcus and the papers. Marcus took them from her hands, and I watched as his face turned ghostly white. The papers were medical records, proof that he had a vasectomy 5 years ago. "You see," I said, pouring another glass of wine, "that's what makes your pregnancy announcement so interesting, Jessica. Either it's a miracle, or you have something to tell Marcus about your other relationships." Silence filled the table. Jessica's lips moved, but no words came out. Marcus stared at the papers, as if hoping it would somehow change. But Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "This has to be a mistake. Marcus, tell her it's a mistake." Marcus couldn't even look at her. He knew it wasn't a mistake. The vasectomy had been his choice. We had agreed that 2 kids were enough. He never told Jessica because I guess he liked pretending he could still have a future with her. "How long have you known?" Marcus finally whispered. I smiled, remembering the day 6 months ago when I found out about their affair. Instead of confronting him, I hired a private investigator. Turns out, Jessica wasn't just seeing Marcus. She was also involved with her personal trainer. "Long enough," I said, standing up and gathering my things. "Long enough to know Jessica has been spending a lot of time with Brad from the gym. Those private sessions must have been quite the workout." Jessica's face turned bright red. "You had me followed." "Of course not, dear. But next time you post your gym selfies on Instagram, you might want to check the reflections in the mirrors behind you." I placed a few $100 bills on the table, enough to cover the meal and a generous tip for the staff. "Happy anniversary, Marcus," I said, pushing back my chair. "Jessica, I'd say congratulations again, but I think you should call Brad instead. He'll probably be more excited about the baby than my husband." As I walked away, I heard Jessica start crying and Marcus push back his chair, probably to follow me. But I didn't look back. This was only the beginning. I had more surprises planned, and I was going to make sure our marriage ended on my terms. The morning after the restaurant chowdown, I woke up in the guest bedroom to 17 missed calls from Marcus and a flurry of text messages from Jessica, ranging from threats to tearful apologies. I ignored them all and made myself a cup of coffee, settling into the window seat that overlooked our backyard. Marcus hadn't come home last night. I imagined he and Jessica had quite the conversation about her extracurricular activities with Brad. The thought made me smile into my coffee cup. A car door slammed outside, and I watched Marcus trudge up our driveway, still wearing his wrinkled suit from last night. He looked terrible. Exactly how a man who just discovered his mistress was cheating on him should look. "Olivia," he called out as soon as he entered. "We need to talk." I took another sip of coffee. "In the sunroom," I replied calmly. He burst in, his tie askew and his eyes bloodshot. "How long have you known about Jessica? About everything?" "Sit down, Marcus," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. You look terrible. He collapsed into the chair, running his hands through his disheveled hair. Jessica admitted everything. About Brad, about God, Olivia. I've been such a fool. Yes, you have, I agreed. But Jessica isn't the only one with secrets, is she? His head snapped up, wariness creeping into his expression. What do you mean? I reached for a second envelope I'd placed on the side table. You know, when I first hired the private investigator to look into your affair, I expected to find the usual things. Hotel receipts, romantic dinners, maybe some incriminating photos. But what I found was so much more interesting. Marcus went very still. Olivia, did you really think I wouldn't find out about the offshore account? I asked, pulling out bank statements that showed regular transfers to a Cayman Islands account. Or about the real estate purchases in Jessica's name. His face went ashy. I can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. Just like you can explain why you've been systematically transferring company funds through shell corporations. I laid out more papers, watching his expression crumble. The forensic accountant I hired was very thorough. You had no right, he began, but I cut him off. I had every right, the moment you started using our joint assets to fund your midlife crisis with Jessica. You gave me that right. He slumped in his chair, the fight draining out of him. What do you want? Divorce papers are being delivered to your office this afternoon. My lawyer has already drafted a settlement agreement that I think you'll find very generous, considering the alternative. Alternative, he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. The alternative is I take everything I've discovered to the board of directors. I'm sure they'd be very interested in learning how their CFO has been manipulating company funds. Not to mention the IRS, they tend to frown on undeclared offshore accounts. Marcus's face had taken on a greenish tinge. You wouldn't. Try me. I stood up, gathering the papers. You have until Friday to sign the settlement agreement. It gives you enough to start over, which is more than you deserve. In return, I get the house, my fair share of our legitimate assets, and your silence. And if I refuse? I smiled, the same calm smile I'd worn at the restaurant. Then envelope number 3 goes to the board of directors, and envelope number 4 goes to the IRS. Your choice. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact instant he realized he'd lost. Not just Jessica, not just his dignity, but everything he tried to hide. When did you get so ruthless? He asked quietly. I learned from the best, I replied. Now I suggest you go shower and change. You have a lot to think about before those divorce papers arrive. As he trudged upstairs, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Jessica. By the way, Raaz says congratulations, he's always wanted to be a father. Within seconds, my phone exploded with messages from her. But I simply turned it off. Let her and Marcus deal with their own mess. I had a future to plan. Looking around the sunroom at the life Marcus and I had built together, I felt a surprising sense of peace. The anger and betrayal were still there, but they'd been transformed into something else. Determination, maybe, or liberation. The sound of the shower running upstairs reminded me that this was just the middle of the story. Marcus would either sign the papers and disappear quietly from my life, or he'd try to fight back and lose everything. Either way, I was prepared. I picked up my coffee cup and walked out to the garden, enjoying the morning sunshine. Our teenagers were away at summer camp, blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding at home. By the time they returned, everything would be settled, one way or another. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Divorce papers ready for delivery. Are you sure about the terms? Absolutely, I replied. He'll sign. After all, I still have several more envelopes of evidence safely stored away. Marcus might have thought he was clever with his secrets and lies, but he'd forgotten one important thing. Hell have no fury like a woman with a good lawyer and an excellent private investigator. Friday arrived with a sense of finality. I sat in my lawyer's office, watching the minutes tick by on an antique clock that probably cost more than most cars. Marcus had until 5 p.m. to sign the divorce settlement. It was currently 4:45. He'll show up, Diana, my lawyer said confidently while reviewing some paperwork. Men like Marcus always do when they realize they're cornered. She was right. At 4:52, Marcus walked in, looking nothing like the powerful CFO he portrayed at work. His shoulders were slumped, his designer suit wrinkled, and the dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept much since our confrontation. "The papers?" he asked quietly, not quite meeting my highs. Diana slid the document across her gleaming desk. I watched as Marcus read through each page, his signature appearing at every marked spot like a surrender flag. No arguments, no last-minute negotiations, just the scratch of his pen against paper. "Is it done?" he asked when he finished. "Almost," I said, pulling out one final envelope. "This is a copy of everything I have. The offshore accounts, the company fraud, the real estate dealings. Consider it insurance. As long as you honor our agreement, it stays sealed." He nodded, understanding the implicit threat. "And Jessica?" "From what I hear, she and Brad had quite the emotional reunion at Fitness First yesterday. Apparently he's thrilled about becoming a father." I couldn't help but smile. "But you might want to invest in some waterproof mascara." Marcus winced. "I deserve that." "Yes, you did." I stood up, gathering my things. "Goodbye, Marcus. I suggest you start looking for a new job before the board starts asking questions about those financial discrepancies." As I walked out of the law office, I felt lighter than I had in years. The setting sun painted the city's skyline in shades of gold and pink, a perfect backdrop for new beginnings. My phone buzzed with a text from our daughter Emma. "How was your anniversary dinner? Did Dad like the gift you planned?" I smiled, thinking of how to respond. Our kids would learn about the divorce soon enough. But for now, they deserve to enjoy their summer camp without adult drama. "It was quite memorable," I texted back. "We'll talk when you get home." Later that evening, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine, watching the stars emerge. The private investigator's final bill had arrived. Money well spent for the freedom it bought me. Jessica had finally stopped texting, probably too busy dealing with her own complicated love life to harass me anymore. My phone rang. It was Diana. "Marcus just called," she said. "He's accepting a position with a firm in Seattle. Says he'll be gone by the end of the month." "Good," I replied. "The farther the better." "You know," Diana said, her tone thoughtful, "in all my years practicing family law, I've never seen someone handle a cheating spouse quite so efficiently. Most people let emotions take over." I thought about the months of careful planning, of building my case piece by piece, while Marcus thought he was being so clever with his deceptions. "The best revenge isn't about getting even," I told her. "It's about getting free." After hanging up, I went inside and opened a safe in my home office. Inside was one last envelope, the one I'd never needed to use. It contained the most damaging evidence of all, the kind that could have sent Marcus to prison. But I'd chosen a different path, one that let me walk away with my dignity and enough security to start fresh. The next morning, I woke up to a different kind of silence in the house. Not the heavy silence of secrets and lies, but the peaceful quiet of a clean slate. I had my home, my freedom, and best of all, I'd never have to attend another awkward anniversary dinner where my husband's mistress announced her miraculous pregnancy. Life has a way of surprising you. Sometimes it's with a devastating betrayal, and sometimes it's with the discovery of your own strength. Marcus had taught me an invaluable lesson, though not the one he'd intended. Never underestimate a woman who appears to be looking the other way. As for that infamous anniversary dinner, it became something of a legend among my friends. The night a cheating husband and his pregnant mistress learned that karma sometimes arrives in a crisp white envelope, served with a side of perfect timing. I kept the medical records from that first envelope, though. You never know when proof of a vasectomy might come in handy, especially if Jessica ever decides to try her pregnancy announcement routine with another unsuspecting man. After all, the best stories are the ones where justice is served with a smile.